Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager.
And I'm Brian Michael. We're on the same side of the table. It's very strange. That means we have a special episode. Today is our Sundance, our annual Sundance episode. And with us, as always, is Brian Hart, our correspondent from Sundance.
Thanks for having me.
And as always, we appreciate you having you on the show. And I would like to point out, though, that even though people might be at home are thinking Sundance, why do we talk about Sundance every year? But it always seems that the films that you talk about, we get to see eventually later on in the year when they come out. A lot of them are big-time Oscar contenders, and a lot of them always tend to be very interesting films. So get out your pens and paper and write down these. You have to wait a little bit, and then when they hit theaters, we'll talk about them again.
Or if they don't hit theaters, they might hit some sort of streaming service where you can check them out. Because a lot of the documentaries don't always go to the big screen. Some of them do. We had a few this year, and you brought us Icarus last year, and that ended up being the Oscar winner for Best Documentary.
And it was one of the best documentaries of the year.
So always happy to have you on.
Yeah, so a lot of pressure now. Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is so tell us, how many years have you been going to Sundance
This
now?
is my 15th year, so this is a little bit of a milestone.
Yeah, wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And
Since you were 15 then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You started.
yeah, I started young.
Wait,
started
that makes me.
volunteering as a young
I'm good
type.
with that. Yeah, that only makes me like
Yeah,
33.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. So I've been doing it for quite a while, and this was a kind of a different year because this was one of the first years where a lot of my friends that I've been going to the festival for 15 years with didn't show up this year. As time goes, people have lives, one, his wife was having a baby, and one had a job conflict, things happen. So it was a little bit of a different year. Only a couple of my long-standing friends were there. But that meant I watched more movies overall because I didn't hang out or social. Scott wasn't there either this year.
Or other Sundance correspondents.
Right,
Yeah.
so usually I spend time with them. I'll rearrange my schedule so I can see a movie with them. We'll have lunch, things like that. So this was just kind of a hardcore. I think I saw 33 this year.
Is that a record? Or
no, I think 39 was my record one year.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
15 years ago.
yeah, 15 years ago when it was easy. Yeah.
So now when you say 33, how many days is that?
It's 10 days of the festival. Yeah.
Nice.
So averaging almost 3.5 movies per day.
That's a lot.
That's good.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it used to be. So
No, because you probably like sleeping more now or things like that. Yeah,
or sleeping in the theater.
Yeah, sleeping in the
there's
theater.
like no foreign films in the second half of the festival because I'll just fall right to sleep.
Yeah, no subtitles second half.
Yeah.
So you also wanted to talk about some themes this year. It was a little every year at Sundance there's a little different feeling in terms of what kinds of movies are making a splash or what kind of feeling distributors are having.
Yeah, there's always kind of an underlining theme for the festival. It's not a theme that Sundance picks necessarily, but there was certainly a lot of questions this year in the middle of the Me Too movement. This is the first festival without Harvey in it at all. So he got a lot of questions at the press conference, Robert Redford, and about, is there going to be more strong female roles? Are there going to be filmmakers? And he kind of explained, and most people I think forget, that it takes really 2 years for a movie to go from concept to in the theater. Correct. And so this was a little bit different. 2 years ago was Oscar So White hashtag. So there were kind of this underlining theme of a lot more people of color, either first-time filmmakers or just being a person of color living in the United States and what that's like. So there was a lot more of that happening, which was really good to see. And so hopefully next year we have all women, or more women. And until that's not even an issue, or we don't talk about it, that's where we want to be eventually. But right now, at least there is some things happening, and a lot more films that are a slice of life that maybe a lot of white privileged people can't relate to, but are exposed to it now.
Will some of the films you're going to be talking about later be related to
that?
Absolutely.
Then? Yeah, you couldn't help but see, and they're good. That's the other thing. When there's more films, they're better films. There's more people doing it. There's people that got riled up about those kinds of things and will say, you know what, I've got a story to tell. I want to make a really good movie. So documentaries and fiction films of both kinds I have on my list, actually.
Well, and that's actually a good point because people will often peg, a female filmmaker will put out a film and it won't be good. And then people go, well, look, she can't direct an action movie or whatever. And it's like, we got one. There's how many male filmmakers directed crappy action movies this year? So if they represent like 90% of the marketplace, there's going to be some good, some bad, but you just have to have a larger representation.
Yeah, but also when they talk about it, especially at the Oscars, they're like, oh, we need to make this change. Like, this is not the time of year to talk about it. This is at the end after they've all been made.
Right.
It's the next day that you can't just talk about it at the Academy Awards. It has to be the next day where those changes are made. And then when those changes are made, it does take about 2 years. I mean, that's really true. And so this last thing with Frances McDormand, that's some studios are actually doing those things with the writers. So it's,
I hope to see a lot more films like that. So
all right.
Anyway,
so that was the big theme this year. So you're going to tell us about your 5, or did you decide on 5 or 6?
It was hard to pick my top 5 this year.
Out of 33.
Out of 33. And there's certainly, it's hard for me to pick like this is going to be the next whatever movie, the next big movie, the next
Well, even
Oscar
the studios
contender.
don't always do a good job. Sometimes the stuff they throw tons of money at, and it doesn't.
And it's really
and it
funny
tanks.
because there's been movies that, I'm at Sundance, has zero buzz. And then towards Oscar season, all of a sudden this movie catches fire and it's a really good movie. And they're like, oh yeah, it was the Sundance darling. And I'm like, I was there. Nobody was talking about this movie, and then whatever, they just didn't market it right, or the right people didn't see it, whatever. It doesn't mean it's not a good film.
Right.
It wasn't discovered and wasn't a big thing. Because I'm constantly, every day I'm asking people, what have you seen? What have you seen good? I talk to the programmers, what was your favorite movie?
Right.
And I make a list, and but everybody's got different tastes too.
Yeah.
Well, and even the ones that the studios throw a lot of money at. I can't remember the name of that movie now, but it was a coming-of-age story. It came out a couple years ago. It was about the kid whose friend, she's got cancer or she's dying or something. And Fox Searchlight, it was like one of the big pickups, that they put, put a lot of money into that movie, and then it came out in theaters and went, it was like just gone. There was no buzz about it once it came out. And so there's often are movies like that. So, and like you said, vice versa. So it's good not to predict, but these are your favorites. So hopefully eventually people will be able to watch them some way and take note. So you're going from 5 to 1. You're going to go.
Yeah, we're going to go in 5 to 1. And I know that for a fact that I think almost every one of these films will be in the theater except for maybe one hasn't been.
So they all got some sort of distribution deal.
Absolutely.
Okay, well that's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah. So we'll start off with number 5, and it is called Hereditary, and it is by first-time filmmaker Ari Aster. And it follows a family that just lost their grandma, so she passes away, and they kind of are dealing with this grief in their own way. Everybody kind of deals with it differently, either closed off or kind of have as a grief breakdown, things like that. And it kind of spirals. And I don't want to say too much about it, but it starts at this, grief story, drama, and then it goes into kind of a psychological thriller as far as like this person spiraling down into madness, and then it takes another turn and turns into basically just a tense, relentless horror, crazy film that it's a lot of people are going to kind of compare this to The Conjuring or the Babadook or something like
Hereditary.
that.
Okay, I heard about this on Twitter because I follow a lot of people that were at Sundance on Twitter from the Real Film Snobs Twitter account. So
Yeah,
you can follow
there you
us. And everyone was talking about this movie. Like people were
A lot of people.
scared
And
out
at
of their
first I
wits,
thought, is this just me? Is this movie really not that scary? I actually saw this movie twice. It played twice in our theater, and I watched it both times. I don't do that very often. And both times it was good. And it was even more fun. I was up on the balcony the second time watching everybody get scared.
That's the best part.
I knew it was coming. It was still had a good effect. But it was watching everybody else, knowing what was about to happen, and then watching everybody jump. It was really cool to see. But yeah, it has really creepy elements of like, these are all-time classics, but kind of like Rosemary's Baby, Exorcist, and kind of some Suspiria, like really crazy, creepy. I mean, don't expect like the all-time best, but it was. I think I said it was at least the second scariest movie I've seen in 15 years at Sundance. So that's something.
Wow, that's quite.
And we'll see how it holds up.
And you don't scare too easily.
No, I don't. So it was fun to see. I think it'll come out this summer, and I think it's a movie that a lot of people are going to talk
It's
about.
first-time filmmaker.
Yeah.
And any actors we would know? Or
Oh
is it
yeah,
mostly-
Toni Collette's in it, and she is great. She plays the mom that kind of goes a little, just this mental dive. And
Well, Toni Collette, she's always solid.
But she always knows a good script too, so that's always good.
And she definitely steals the show. And there's also the gal that plays the daughter. I think she won a Tony Award or something. So she
came from theater.
Came from a theater background.
So that one, I'm assuming that one got picked up because horror movies usually, if it gets good buzz,
yep, absolutely. It'll be out this summer.
Yeah.
I think they already had a release date like 2 days after Sundance.
Oh,
they had
wow.
a release
Okay.
date for it.
Jeez.
So it'll be coming out.
Okay,
soon.
we'll look forward to that one. Brian loves a good horror movie.
Yeah,
don't you, Brian?
right.
Yes, I
I
do.
thought about
Both
you
of the
actually
Brians, yeah.
during when I was watching it, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna.
I'm not afraid to put one in my top 10 if it's good.
Get a
I will
group
put it
together
in
to
there.
go see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be fun.
I just hope that I was actually glad to see that it got good reviews and a lot of people were talking about it, because sometimes for scary movies especially, they can be a little bit, niche, or you think they're good and then you see them later and you're like, it wasn't that great. But yeah, this one seems to hold up.
Cool.
So second movie, my fourth favorite, was a documentary. Of course. And
At least it's not all documentaries.
they're not all. It's two documentaries only.
Okay, well, pretty good for you.
Yeah. So this one is called "Won't You Be My Neighbor," and it is by Morgan Neville, who did 20 Feet from Stardom, and it's about Mr. Rogers, of course.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of buzz on this one.
There is, and it is also, I checked with Salem Cinema to make sure they're going to get this movie, and it is coming out, I think mid-June, something like that. I grew up with Mr. Rogers. It was a big part of my childhood. Even more than Sesame Street and Saturday morning cartoons, I always watched Mr. Rogers. I went to my great-grandma's house after school, watched Mr. Rogers.
wow.
So it was just a big part of my life.
Yep.
And I always have this nostalgia. It certainly is going to have nostalgia for people that kind of grew up with him. But he, in this day and age, we need someone that's a good guy.
Right,
that
good
is
role
just
model.
a good role model. There's always
Not a phony.
in this day and age. You're kind of like waiting for the bad news.
I know
like,
that's what I'm waiting. Is there something bad?
Never
that we need
happened.
to know?
So I
Okay.
can't. It's not a spoiler.
please
It was
don't.
all good.
Oh,
the
good.
entire movie.
It's
I
not at
just
the
had
end
the
and like, and
biggest,
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
Like
And
to
then
run over
this what
cats
happened.
and
It
it's
was
You
like,
wouldn't even doubt it. It would crush you. But no.
okay.
As far as we know, he's.
So it's a positive
he's-
portrayal
It's super
as far as we know,
positive.
yeah.
He's a greater. Every time I learn something about him, I just have more respect and have more fond memories of what a great influence he was. So that was just a delight.
There was a lot of buzz for that one at the festival, or no, not as much?
I think there was some buzz for sure. I
It's
think
not edgy, so
it's
probably
not edgy,
Yeah,
and it's just a feel good.
Mr. Rogers is not edgy, although maybe in a way he's sort of like so not edgy that he's edgy again. It's like the opposite of
Yeah, kind of.
Do you
I
remember
think
who
it's
the
just
producers
something
were
that,
on this one? Because isn't there there's a famous actor that's behind it, I thought.
well, just the director, did 20 Feet from Stardom.
Okay.
which was a huge movie.
Yeah, which I think
mean,
won an
huge
Oscar
for
or
a
something.
documentary. Yeah,
Well, that was a really
Which
good
is really
documentary. Actually,
yeah,
I liked
very
that
good.
one documentary. So
Yeah.
it was a really cool.
So,
Yeah.
he definitely has chops, and it's got, of course, it's got archival footage and then interviews people,
remember
that
him.
knew him and things like that. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
very
cool.
cool.
Did they bring back some of the characters from the voice, the people that were on the show?
Well,
and-
he did almost every
Yeah, so
voice,
he did all
which is
the voices.
amazing.
Didn't they have any? Oh, but just people that were
Yeah,
involved with the
characters.
show.
They did have characters, yeah. And the characters came back. The guy that played the mailman or the guy that
Yeah,
played
yeah,
the
that's
neighbor
what I
and
meant,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They were in there and had footage of him.
That
So,
sounds cool.
yeah.
Yeah. No, looking forward to that one, and that one will be another summer release. So
Yeah,
far.
and just like I said, we need a feel-good movie once
Yeah.
in a while.
Yeah.
So, now my next pick, number
Number
three,
three.
is the exact opposite of that.
Okay.
So
this is gonna be
after
one of your
seeing
crazy
all
movies.
of these melodramas and documentaries that are really hard to watch but are important, sometimes you just need a mind melt, brain candy, super graphic, violent movie that they have at Sundance.
Okay.
More than Hereditary. I need a little reset. I need a movie where I can just unplug. But this movie actually surprised me a lot. It was probably the one that surprised me the most, and I thought about over and over. It's called Assassination Nation, and it's by director Sam Levinson. And the tagline is, "This is a 1,000% true story of how a quiet, all-American town of Salem absolutely lost its mind." And so I was hoping that it would be Salem, Oregon, and Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Yes. But so it's about these four
That's
girls.
fine. We don't need anyone focusing on this.
I was like, well, we could have lost our mind too. It's about these four girls that are in high school, and they the town kind of revolts against them because there's this big hack in the community, and one of them gets blamed, falsely blamed, and the town just goes berserk, and they're on a mission to hunt them down and kill them, essentially. The scary part is all of these things. So it will offend even the most offensive people. In the beginning, it says if you don't like, rape and racism and misogyny and blah blah blah, this movie's gonna freak you out. And they do
if
this.
You don't like, or
if you don't like it, yeah. If you're offended by, and then they have all these words and kind of fast forward to different scenes in the movie, and they're like, this might offend you. And so it's very in your face. It's very blunt, but scarily enough, it could happen. Like you can see in this day and age. Talk about this crazy day and age that we live in. A town just going crazy over these rumors, and they use social media a lot. So all these social media pictures and texts and emails get leaked to everybody, to essentially half the community. And so people have cheated, or people have all these secrets.
So did they pick Salem,
exposed.
Massachusetts, because it's supposed to be some sort of parallel with the witch hunt?
Yeah, kind of essentially a modern day telling
hunt,
of
witch trials.
Yeah, the witch trials.
Now this one I also heard a lot about on Twitter from different critics, and it was very divided. Some of the
very
critics thought it
divided,
was really terrible and just like overhyped and not actually very good as a film. And then others were raving about it, like you just did. So I'm curious. So you heard that as well.
It sold for the most. It sold for $10 million. It was the biggest purchase for that year. And it's interesting because I don't know how they're going to market it. It is very offensive. It's going to be a hard R movie.
So that's interesting that it sold for the most, though.
Yeah,
too,
it sold for the most because it's.
Oh, Brian, have you never been going to the theaters lately? It's a violent film that's really easy to market, though.
Yeah, but this one, it really pushes it. It's bloody.
Even better. They show the crowd reaction.
Yeah.
The night vision.
Yeah, but it's not really a horror movie, is it?
No, it's not a horror. It's just a very graphic, violent film. But the social commentary that it has, it was too much for somebody, too in your face. But I actually liked it because I wasn't expecting it. And I just thought, you have this inner dialogue the entire time that you're watching it, like, what would I do? Or, God, could that really happen? I hope not, but it might. It's like that part is really scary. And it deals with some issues that, film hasn't really gone that far before. So
interesting. So
it will definitely spur conversation.
And this one definitely got picked up then.
Yeah, and it's definitely, people are going to love it and hate it, but that's kind of the fun part too, is taking friends and then having a conversation afterwards.
Oh, we know a
will be
little
really
something
good
about
time.
that. Yeah.
Maybe you could do a little post review.
Yeah, a little post review. So was it a filmmaker, a first time filmmaker, or someone who had made?
I can't, Sam Levinson, I can't remember if he's done a movie before or not. But,
okay, and
he's
the
not
actors
huge.
weren't any.
There were a couple, but no one huge, no one that I knew.
Okay.
A couple people from TV shows or things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Second one, I better get going here. It was Monster. It was a fiction film.
Another monster.
Yeah, I know. Horrible title. It even says on IMDb like Monster 2, 2018. So anyway, it's by Anthony Mandler, who I think this is maybe his first feature. He's done a lot of music videos and commercials and things like that. It's based off the New York Times bestseller novel of the same name, Monster, about Steve Harmon, who's a 17-year-old black kid from Harlem and an inspiring filmmaker who finds himself sentenced and incarcerated in a New York juvenile detention center for robbery and a felony murder. And it kind of asks the question, the director kept saying this, it asks the question, can one moment in your life define your entire life? So it's another movie about, living in Harlem, as a black person with the justice system against you, and it's interesting because it even goes in different, even income levels of even the black community. He's kind of an upper middle class black person, and some of the people that he's hanging around with are, what they would call, gangster, low level, crime people on the street, but he just finds them interesting for film subjects and things like that, and how he kind of meets these people and what happens in his life. So even though it's not specifically a true story, that things like this happen all the time in the United States.
So it's based on a true story, or
it's based on a novel,
okay.
but it's not specifically true, but
I see.
I'm sure it's happened 1,000 times last year. You know, so it's certainly one that you can relate to, and just as a real good perspective.
And the actor, do you know?
You know, he was the kid wasn't that famous, but Jeffrey Wright is his father, and Jennifer Hudson is his mother.
Oh wow!
So and then
So those are pretty big names
too.
Nas is in it.
Nas is
Anything
in
with
it.
Jeffrey Wright, I don't remember last time. Well,
Like Hunger Games
I
or
was
things
like,
like
is
that.
last
Yeah.
one?
No,
Surely
James Bond?
No, he was in Hunger Games.
He was.
I know, but when James Bond's more recently? I don't know. I didn't
maybe.
see all the Hunger Games
Anyway,
movies.
Jeffrey Wright is great.
Yeah,
regardless.
he's
So
great.
always fun to see. And Jennifer Hudson.
Yeah,
you know,
they're really great as his parents.
yeah.
So.
So they got some big names for it for a first-time filmmaker. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that was your number 2. So
That
now,
was my number 2.
Drum
So,
roll.
Yeah, number 1,
number
a documentary. Hey,
Oh,
big
big
surprise.
shock. Yeah.
But this is only the second one I did, so you know. And this is called The Sentence, and it's by Rudy Valdez, and it follows his sister, who Cindy Shank, a mother of 3, serving a 15-year sentence in a federal prison for her involvement with her, at the time, boyfriend who was dealing drugs. So it talks about the mandatory minimum sentencing in her state. I can't remember what state it is. But so just because she was affiliated, she lived in the same household with her boyfriend at the time, she also had to serve 15 years minimum sentence. First time offense, wasn't involved, just knew him. And they didn't sentence her until 6 years later. So she had 3 kids, she was remarried, long since gone with this guy.
wow.
And that's 6 years later is when they put her in prison for 15 years. So it's a film where they, her brother is filming her, basically her 3 daughters and her husband growing up without her mother. And of course, because of the way the system works, they keep moving her farther and farther away from where she lives. So pretty soon it's just phone calls and maybe a once-a-year visit where they can even see their mom. And watching these kids, how they change, you see it in the way that they talk, the way they talk to their mom. They lose their innocence. It's so heartbreaking. And the brother, the family, the dad. Oh my gosh! I don't get really emotional in movies either. This movie, everybody was bawling like crazy in this theater. It's a really hard movie to watch, but it's super important. It's a great way to tell a story. There's so many documentaries that are just about statistics and graph charts and numbers. This, is an issue, but it's just all about this family story.
Right, it's all personalized.
And it's so powerful that way. More documentaries that are trying to do social justice should follow that pattern, where you just take the story, you barely even talk
You
about
got to put a face
what's
to the
happening.
issue. A lot of times it's just an issue and it's a number, like you said. If it's a number, a statistic, then people, it's easy to kind of wash over that number. But when you put a face to it, then that's when it makes a bigger impact. And that's what's really smart with documentaries when they do something like this.
I think about something like Ava DuVernay's film 13, which was on streaming, and I liked it, but it's very statistic heavy and talking heads. Lots of researchers talking about prison stats.
Right.
So something like this, it sounds like really brings it to life a lot more. So
yeah, and I think they're starting to do that a little bit more. They're getting what works and what doesn't, and that certainly seems to be kind of the shift of where they're going to.
And what was she accused of again? What was she going to prison for?
Well, for her boyfriend was a drug dealer.
Oh, I see.
So it was just by association. She also, he served 15 years. She did. Just because she wasn't dealing, she wasn't doing anything. I mean, she broke the law. She's the first one to say, yes, I broke the law. I didn't turn him in. I didn't say anything.
Accomplice or whatever.
Yeah, but she certainly,
that's pretty harsh.
For first time, never had an offense of any kind. 15 years minimum. Oh, and guess what? She's a minority. Big surprise. She's a minority in the system that gets 15 years. She was a contributing member of society. And it tore apart the family, the community, her life, obviously. And the documentary spans 10 years. Of her life in prison. So
they stayed with it.
Yeah,
wow,
they
that's
stayed
incredible.
with it. He made the film. He started the film just kind of as a way to film her daughters growing up, so she wouldn't be missing, their life. And he's like, "Oh, I'll just show this to her later." So they're like off to a dance recital, and he'll get her on the phone, and he's like, "Mommy loves you very much." It's a lot of these phone calls where you never see her, but you just see these kids. And see it in their eyes and their face, and how it changes them.
Yeah, so that was the most powerful film.
Yeah, definitely the most powerful. So the Sentence and Monster, kind of similar subjects. So it was cool that, I mean, it just
one
happened to be
documentary,
that
one
way.
fiction, yeah.
Yeah, but very much kind of the same story. The minority living in the United States, you know, with the
dealing with the
system
prison
kind of
system, with the
against
highest
them.
incarceration rate in the industrialized world.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, that's incredible. And so there was one film I was surprised you didn't talk about that I saw everyone talking about on Twitter, and I cannot remember the name of it.
oh shoot! Do you know what it's kind of about?
Ooh, let's play the
or-
guessing game now. Who is it? Does it star that guy with the other guy?
Well, it was. I remember seeing the photos. It was an African American cast, and I think it was the girl that was in Dear White People, maybe. And I'm not sure.
Is it Sorry to Bother You?
Yes.
That was the one that I said I might change my mind, and I really want to talk
do you
about
want to
it.
talk about it
Yeah.
really briefly? We have a minute.
Do we have a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Sorry to Bother
Sorry to
You.
Bother You. It's by, now I don't have my notes in front of me because I didn't make any. I think it's Boots Collins.
Okay.
And he also, I think, is a musician.
Bootsy Collins?
Yeah. No.
Oh.
No,
So Bootsy Collins is a
Boots
musician?
something.
Okay.
Yeah, but he is a musician and maybe did music videos and things like that. It's got Tessa Thompson. It's got
Tessa Thompson, that's her name.
Tessa
Yeah, she's
Thompson's
really
in it.
good.
She was amazing. I met her
Yeah.
after the film. She's super cool.
awesome.
She's so cool. I want her to be in every movie. She's so great.
She's really good.
Super down to earth too. My friend was like, "Hey Tessa, can I take a picture?" She's like, "Yeah, let's do this." You know,
Oh,
she's
that's cool.
very down to earth, very awesome person.
So that one was getting huge buzz.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, it's funny. I looked at it. I kept going back and forth. Do I want to talk about it? It's also going to be super decisive. It's very crazy. It's weird. It's like I like this analogy was it's Get Out on acid.
Oh.
So it's kind of psychedelic.
Wow.
Sort
Yeah,
of,
it
or-
gets
yeah.
it kind of it starts this way. He's a telemarketer, but he finds out that he's really good at this, and it's a guy from Get Out, I think, even one of the actors. Not the main character in Get
Yeah,
Out.
I know
but
it's
one
the
of
guy who plays the one that's at the party.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a
kinda,
great. Yeah, I
yeah.
like that actor. Yeah.
Yep.
Atlanta. Yeah.
So he plays. He finds out that he's really good at telemarketing, and he gets good at it. But he has to use his white voice to be really good at it. So then he gets this, voice that sounds like a white person. So he then triples his sales and quadruples them, and he gets better and better. And then it just goes berserk. Like the movie goes, Tessa Thompson's his girlfriend, who's kind of an activist that wears these big giant earrings with political
So
messages
it's
on
kind
them.
of a humor, but kind
It's
of a
humor.
satire.
It's definitely humor, and it's just
Really
crazy,
crazy, yeah.
really crazy.
So it would be like if you had number 6, you could put that
He
one
said,
in.
yeah, Boots said, I want to make a movie where even I don't know what the heck's going on in the next
Yes.
minute, and that's how.
Right, and
That's
that
what
one
you
got
think.
picked up as well. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got
yeah.
picked up.
So
and
did
it'll
all the
be out
movies?
there.
So did your number 1 was that the one that didn't get picked up? That you're
No,
not
I
aware
think
of?
Monster. I haven't heard if it's
If it
getting
did or not.
released
Okay,
or
so
not.
otherwise
Yeah.
people should be able to look for these films.
Yeah,
Be able
absolutely.
to find them out.
Yeah.
Eventually down the line. So
Yeah.
very, very cool.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah,
It's
thanks for
always
having me.
exciting to have you on. Yeah.
As always, it's good to have you on the show. Okay, so that's going to do it for another episode. Certainly, you can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. You can check us out at realfilmsubs.com and submit a viewer's pick if you'd like. Listen to us on KMUZ. And you can also watch us out in Silverton as well as Corvallis. Am I forgetting anything?
No, it's good.
No, excellent. As always, I want to thank our hardworking crew, wonderful co-host. And thank you for watching. Have a great day and great movies.